The Locked On Podcast Network presents the College Sports Big 3 in 30. The three biggest stories in college sports. From our local experts at the Locked On Podcast Network. We bring you the real story, why it matters, what's next, who wins the big game, and more, all in 30 minutes. The College Sports Big 3 in 30 starts now with the biggest story in college sports.
Kentucky basketball came into their game of the year, and they just clearly did not want it more.
You are Locked On Kentucky, your daily podcast on the Kentucky Wildcats, part of the Locked On Podcast Network.
The Cats have lost to a team that just simply wanted it more. It's a shooting performance from the Arkansas Razorbacks that, quite frankly, I did not expect coming. I don't think nobody in Arkansas, nobody in Kentucky would have expected the shooting performance that Arkansas has had tonight to come to fruition, and sure enough, it certainly has. Thank you guys so much for making Locked On Kentucky your first listen every single day. Want to remind everyone out there that we are free and available on all platforms. And if you're watching on YouTube, I would greatly appreciate it if you subscribe to the show. And if you're listening on podcast, I would also appreciate it if you subscribed there as well. Again, appreciate you guys in the live chat for tuning in. This is a game where Kentucky was down both their starting and backup point guards, and you can talk about how much of an important aspect of this game that could be, especially considering the way that DJ Wagner played tonight for Arkansas, but it really comes down to two different things for me. And it comes down to Arkansas wanting the game more. They wanted to win this game more than Kentucky did. And then on top of that, you also had some very poor officiating. And this is something I've continued to harp about. I know it's right here on the screen. I'm not going to dive too much into it other than two different things. Number one, officiating in college basketball has been incredibly inconsistent this entire season. Yes, we kind of hashed this out during the Georgia game. We won't do it again here. Second thing is Arkansas had 16 fouls with 12 minutes left. You got down to the 4-minute timeout, and you had 17 fouls if you were the Hogs. And gentlemen, that's just part of the story. Is it what decided the game? Absolutely not. Arkansas came in here and shot incredibly well in this contest, but again, it's just simply a game that I don't think Arkansas will have ever again. I'm still sitting here kind of stunned that this is where we're at. Like, this is the reality, is that Kentucky came in here. I'm just closing out the tab that I had watching the game. This is a game that Kentucky came in with, I think, just about every single metric on their side in terms of what you're looking at on KenPom, what you're looking at on Evan Mia. On paper, this is a team that Kentucky should have beaten by what the Vegas line said, somewhere between 10 to 15 points. This is an Arkansas team that has shot so poorly this season that you didn't expect for them to come in and rattle off 13 threes, 13 of 25 there for the game. Kentucky shot 43.5% themselves, 10 of 23 from beyond the arc, at least so far, with 1:06 left in the game. But that's just kind of how this one went. Again, I appreciate you guys tuning in the live chat. If you've got any comments on this game, would love for you to sound off. This is one that kind of stings. It does not look like in that first half, and frankly, at various points in the second, that Kentucky came to play at all. They did not go out there and compete physically. They did not go out there and fight. They had some really bad shot selection. If you want to talk about coaching, this may be Mark Pope's worst game of the year in terms of rotations and lineups. They were incredibly baffling. One of you just mentioned it in the live chat, and I'll say it here. Run some zone against Calipari and a team that does not shoot the ball well, and yet they just simply refused to do it. An incredibly upsetting and disappointing performance for the Cats. Somebody else here in the chat, Josh, says Amari and Robinson were the only ones who showed up, and it does kind of feel like that Amari was the guy here, at least in the preview episode that I said, hey, he was the X factor for Kentucky, and he came in, played very, very well. He has 20 points, 11 rebounds, he has 3 assists, 3 turnovers as well, but a steal, and he played really well in 24 minutes. In fact, I'm looking here. He's the only Wildcat that's positive in plus-minus box score here. Jax was minus 11 despite having 20 points, shooting 6 of 9 from the floor. He had 3 rebounds, 2 assists, 2 turnovers. I thought both of them played well. And this is something that Evan Mia talked about recently, and I don't want to get on him too hard, but Otega Owe, when he is on the floor, according to analytics, Kentucky doesn't play that well, at least especially on the defensive end. And as of late, they've been playing worse. And in this game, you see him go 4 of 12 for 8 points, 2 rebounds, minus 18 in 31 minutes of play. That's the worst here out of the entire rotation that played tonight. You have to figure out what you're doing with your rotations. If Lamont Butler's going to be out long-term, maybe you start looking elsewhere outside of, frankly, somebody like Colin Chandler or Travis Perry, who have simply just not provided enough. I know they got on the floor tonight and they were able to contribute in a couple of different ways, but Travis is just, I don't think he's the long-term answer for you, at least this season. I mean long-term, like to finish out the season. And then you look at a guy like Colin Chandler, who played 17 minutes tonight. I don't quite understand why. And if you want to say, well, Kobe doesn't play defense, Kobe finished with a better plus-minus. Despite going 2 of 8, he still finished with, I think, actually, third best plus-minus on the team tonight. He was apparently the third best player on the floor in 28 minutes, despite going 2 of 8, 1 of 6 from 3. Look, if you also want to get pretty simple here, if you want to talk about kind of, where this fell apart for Kentucky, you can also look to the second half shooting. Kentucky went 3 of 13 from beyond the arc. Arkansas only shot 7 threes, but they made 4 of them. It's for Kentucky, man. Mark Pope has talked a lot about it's about volume, not efficiency, and you kind of throw that out of the window whenever you just simply cannot stop another team from scoring on slower possessions. It's just, you have to be more efficient. It's not about chucking up more threes. It's about making the open ones that you get, man. So this one, it's frustrating. It's frustrating. Game's not even over yet. Kentucky is now down 89-79 with 17 seconds left. Apparently, they've made their last 3 shots, but it doesn't matter as they have just simply not been able to stay in front of Janelle Davis, Adu Thiero, DJ Wagner, 3 players who just went out of their minds, just played ballistic here tonight. You didn't expect it, and there it goes. It is officially gone final. 89-79. Again, I appreciate you guys in the live chat. Just continue to sound off. Let me know what you think about this game. If you want to spin this positively, which I'll probably say this later on in the show, and a lot of Arkansas fans will probably see this. If anybody wants to clip this, you know what? Go ahead. I frankly don't really care. The Hogs, I don't foresee them having another shooting performance like that again. These kids that are currently on this roster could be playing well after college with each other, whether it be in the NBA, whether it be pickup, whether it be overseas. It doesn't really matter. They're never going to have a game like this again. And I respect that. There is a respect to that because what it means is they got up for this game and they wanted to win. This is a roster coming into the season that a lot of people had high hopes in. When they beat Kansas in an exhibition game earlier this year, a lot of people got really excited, as they should have. This is a talented, on paper, talented Arkansas group, but they've fought through injuries. They've kind of been shorthanded, and here they are now in a game where their backs are against the wall. This is what Cal has done so well, especially during his time at Kentucky. They fight and they win one that they frankly shouldn't. It's the one game a year where you pull out of it and you go, how on earth did Coach Cal win that? And yet they find a way to do it here. We're live on YouTube. If you're listening on the postcast, appreciate you tuning in and wherever you're tuned in. Hey, subscribe to the show. We are so close to 15,000 subscribers. I appreciate every single one of you who are in here. 89-79 is the final score. The loss here.
Super Bowl 59 is here. One game, 2 teams, endless possibilities. And there's no better way to make every play more exciting than with FanDuel Sportsbook. Whether it's predicting the first touchdown, calling the MVP, or even betting on the coin toss, FanDuel makes it easy to get in on the action. With live betting all game long, you can adjust your bets as the game unfolds and feel the thrill from kickoff to the final whistle. The live betting feature lets you stay involved no matter what happens on the field, and the app is super easy to navigate. Plus, knowing that you can place a $5 bet and potentially win $200 in bonus bets for the Super Bowl, that's just icing on the cake. Download the app or head to FanDuel.com to get started. Bet just $5, and if you win, you'll score $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Bet with FanDuel, official partner of Super Bowl 59.
You are Locked On Balls, your daily podcast on the Tennessee Volunteers.
A 20-point drubbing, 64-44, shorthanded, 7 scholarship players. Zakai Ziegler didn't play. Igor Milicic didn't play. Of course, Tennessee's already shorthanded. First and foremost, Grant, thanks for joining the show. Was this the most impressive win of the Rick Barnes era? Rick Barnes, he had a lot of great things to say about this win post-game, but I want your opinion. Maybe not the best win, but was this the most impressive?
No, the best win I think was at Creighton. Against Creighton in the NCAA tournament last year. Because since they had been to the Sweet 16 a few times under Rick, they really needed to win that game. They really need to get back to the Elite Eight for just the second time in program history. They went to Alabama and won. They've won a lot in Rupp under Rick. So there's a lot of other wins that kind of stack up against this one. This one might be the most impressive response, most impressive situation that they overcome, adversity just in terms of who they are missing, and Zakai Ziegler and Igor Milicic, and how much they rely on those guys, what those guys do game in and game out. And not only that, the last 2 weeks. I mean, 3 losses the last 4 games. This team started 14-0. They were ranked number 1 for 5 weeks in a row. Like, they needed some kind of response. They needed some kind of statement. And they got one at home against a team that had beat them by 30 3 weeks ago in Gainesville. So it was as impressive of a performance and an answer, I guess, to a really tough situation that I've seen in a long time.
Yeah, that's just another layer to this game I didn't even mention. I mean, Tennessee fell first loss of the season, and boy, did they make it count. 30-point loss on the road to Florida back on January the 7th, is towards the first of the new year. And the response from that game, and of course everything that's happened, Tennessee loses a 3 of 4. It felt like Rick Barnes, I don't want to say he was snippy or anything, but it's kind of like he was getting tired of the questions at the media availability on Friday. You were there. Tell me about it. You guys essentially saying, hey, how's the temperature of the locker room? You know, things aren't great. And his response was kind of like, guys, I mean, I've done this forever. Like, we're good. We're good. And certainly they look good on Saturday.
That kind of started on Tuesday night in his post-game after Kentucky when we kind of just kept pestering with questions that he wasn't really wanting to keep answering. At one point he said, look, we've lost 4 games. We're not that bad of a basketball team. We're not in that bad of a place. He said we've lost 4 games against 4 good teams, all that stuff. And then Friday, it was like, what's this team need to do to see some shots go down? How badly does this team need to see shots go in early in the game? How does this team score it better? Like, what do you do when people are daring you to shoot threes, but you don't want to just sit there and jack up threes all the time? Like, and at some point, it was like, enough's enough. Like, he was tired of this line of questioning. It was, again, like, we've lost 4 games against 4 teams that were ranked at one point in time. They're all good basketball teams. That was he's usually joking in a good mood. He was a little bit aggravated. He's a little bit tired. I think those 2 weeks had worn on everybody. And I think you saw a little bit of a kind of a release valve against Florida with the way they played to kind of take some of that frustration out on an opponent and play a lot better at home in front of their home crowd, in front of a great atmosphere Saturday, opposed to how they kind of let down on Tuesday.
What was the turning point of the game? Because to me, again, I was actually over there watching baseball at the time, and I had an earbud in, and I was listening to Bob and Bert and the Ball Radio Network. And to me, not watching but listening to the game, it certainly felt like the run there to begin the second half. What was it, 9-0? And Tennessee jumped up to 10 just right out of the gate there. I could hear the crowd. It certainly felt like that place was bumping. Was the run there to begin the second half kind of like, okay, Tennessee's got control of this game, and then not only does Tennessee have control of this game, but Tennessee's on its way to just demolishing the Gators?
Let's quote Bryn Hubbs and talk about the middle 8 and how important that final 4 minutes is to close the first half, and how important that first 4 minutes is to start the second half.
Yeah.
Tennessee kept hanging around. Florida led for, I think, 14 minutes in the first half, almost 14 minutes, something like that. But there was one sequence, one possession where I think it was Darlington Dubar got a block under the rim. Florida got the loose ball. Florida went back to the rim. Cade Phillips blocked the second shot. Then Jemai Meshack corrals the loose ball. He outlets to Chaz Lanier, who hits a pull-up 3 in transition, which is you got to have some guts to take that shot, especially a guy that's been missing shots as badly as he had the last couple times out. That put them up 21-20, something like that. I think that gave them the lead for the first time, and they didn't trail after that. They closed the half really well in the final 3 minutes, and then they started the second half with a really quick 6-0 run, forced a Florida timeout. It wasn't anything crazy, too. It's like a baseline cut. a post feed, a mid-range jumper. Like, it was good offense, and Florida called a timeout. And I think Florida got a three-point play out of that timeout, and that was a little bit of momentum for them. But after that, it was like, Tennessee was up 10 in a matter of minutes, and then not long after that, it felt like it was 20, then 21, and it got out of hand that quickly because of that transition there to close the first half to start the second half. And that was all the home crowd needed to kind of help put this team away. And the way that Tennessee was playing on defense, man, that 10-point lead felt like a 30-point lead.
Leading into the game, and I'll get to the status of Zakai Ziegler and Igor Milicic here in a moment, but kind of once we got the news that those guys were out, Tennessee was down to 7 scholarship players. Your lineup was going to – was it going to be Boswell? Were they going to move Gainey to the points? D Stone's going to be in there. Like, I was texting one of my buddies, and I'm like, Tennessee is going to get absolutely waxed unless Chaz Lanier goes off. And I don't feel like I was alone in that thought. I saw plenty of tweets saying, come on, guys, let's give it our best effort. In parentheses, I don't think Tennessee is going to win. It's like, but in typical Rick Barnes fashion, backs against the wall, man, Tennessee just comes out. But it was so much more than Chaz Lanier. Chaz Lanier was great, made 5 3-pointers, had 19 points. And that was a game high, but Tennessee, won the turnover battle 7-13. Tennessee dominated points in the paint 34-14. It was just so much more than one guy, and I thought what Jordan Gainey did was super impressive, shifting over to the 1, scoring 16. Wasn't great from behind the arc, but found ways to impact the game in other ways. And, of course, Jamon Meshack was who Jamon Meshack is. Starting probably one of the best highlight reels of Saturday, the turnover steal, Kate Phillips to somebody, back to Phillips with the slam. That was incredible.
If you look at the box score, it's basically the exact opposite of what happened in Gainesville. Points in the paint, turnovers, points off turnovers, second chance points, rebounding, all that stuff. It almost is completely opposite of how that game played out in Gainesville. And I was texting people as well Saturday morning when I was headed to the arena, because it felt like in those situations, you either find a way to rally and you win by 15, 20 points, or you get beat by 30, you get beat by 40, and it's just demoralizing and awful. And I don't know what it is about Jordan Gainey when there's no Zakai Ziegler available. You go back to Illinois in December, Zakai picks up his 3rd and 4th foul in the same possession with 18 minutes left in the game, and he has to go to the bench. And Gainey takes over, and he takes over that game. He scores 18 points over the next 18 minutes. He didn't commit any turnovers. He was just in control. He's, poised. He makes that shot, obviously, at the rim to win the game as time expires, that contested layup after driving coast to coast. He was just as impressive yesterday. The stuff that he did, how poised he was, how in control he was, how he was getting everybody involved. What you're talking about, everybody doing a little bit of something, it feels like there's crooked numbers all over that box score with assists, with rebounds, with blocks, with points. It felt like they only had 7 guys available, but all 7 guys were doing something. I don't think Bishop Boswell was the only guy that didn't score, but he played well. He played more minutes than he has in a long time, and he handled himself well. He was the guy who Jemiah saved it to Cade. Cade outletted it to Bishop. Bishop threw it right back to Cade. There wasn't a single dribble on that play, that huge dunk.
No.
That was another huge moment in the second half. And that was kind of it in a nutshell. That was a hustle play by Jemiah to tip that ball to save it, and then it was heads up to get it to Cade, to get it forward to Bishop, to get it back to Cade. That was just kind of, in a nutshell, everybody doing what they had to do to win that basketball game.
Yeah, it was awesome for sure. I've seen that replay everywhere on social media since the end of the game. Out the door here, of course, you got Mizzou coming up this week on a Wednesday night, going to Oklahoma. Status of Igor, who I believe is just sick, and then what did Rick Barnes have to say about Zakai Ziegler and his availability moving forward?
Igor missed practice Friday because he was dealing with that illness, and he was actually removed from the injury report Saturday morning, so he was available to play technically up until pregame, and he was in the back getting fluids, and he wanted to play. He wanted to try to go, but they just ended up rolling him out not long before the national anthem and the intros and all that stuff, because he never came out to the floor for warm-ups with his teammates. With Zakai, he had an MRI Friday night, no structural damage shown in the MRI according to Rick Barnes. Which makes sense because he went back in the game to start second half against Kentucky Tuesday night, and he never came off the floor. He played all 20 minutes in the second half. And I'm not sure if that's something where maybe when the adrenaline wears off, maybe when all that stuff and you kind of settle down, your body, you don't move around as much after a game, you kind of relax a little bit. Maybe it stiffens up, maybe it gets sore, maybe it feels a little bit differently than it did in that moment. Like when he got hurt, he didn't get carried off the floor. He jumped up and kind of did this kind of jog/hobble towards the Tennessee bench and straight into the locker room. So at some point, I guess it became sore. At some point, it became an issue. I don't know kind of what the update's going to be. We'll talk to Rick Tuesday before Missouri comes here on Wednesday. And man, the SEC schedule, I'll tell you what, it does not let up because Missouri has won 6 out of 7. They just went to Mississippi State and won by 27 against a ranked Mississippi State team. It's tough to win in Starkville when the building's full and when that's a good basketball team. State's kind of reeling right now. And then you look at Saturday, they go to Oklahoma. All Oklahoma did was get down by 13 in the first half against Vanderbilt on Saturday and came back and won by 30. They outscored Vanderbilt close to 40 points in the second half. And Oklahoma's a team that started, I think, 14-0 as well. So there are no days off. There's no breathers in the SEC. Like Tennessee had a huge response against Florida. Now you better have another response ready for Missouri Wednesday night.
I love going to live events, whether it's sports, music, theater, comedy. How about a Broadway show? Can't wait to take my kids to Broadway. The energy, the excitement, it's unforgettable. Seeing live performers, it's the best. Gametime has a new feature called Gametime Picks that makes getting tickets to your favorite live events even easier. Gametime Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Curation makes it easier to save on sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and more near you. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first ticket purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? Gametime.
Chip Kelly is the latest Ohio State assistant on the move as he's heading back to the NFL.
You are Locked On Buckeyes, your daily podcast on the Ohio State Buckeyes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network.
Chip Kelly is the latest Ohio State assistant on the move as he's heading back to the NFL to be the offensive coordinator of the Las Vegas Raiders. And just like Jim Knowles leaving and just like Justin Frye leaving, Chip Kelly going away from Ohio State is a massive loss. He is one of the best offensive minds in college football. Him and Ryan Day are both personal friends, which added to how big it was to get Chip Kelly to Ohio State. And in this year, it seemed to work in the way that anybody would want it to work. At the end of the day, Ohio State won a national championship during Chip Kelly's lone year in Columbus, Ohio. Now, moving forward for Ohio State, you got to put trust in Ryan Day. Ryan Day has made sure that he figures out how to replace coaches, and now it's going to be year 7 for Ryan Day. He's made some bad hires previously, but also he's made some pretty good hires and promotions, and I think you can trust Ryan Day to make sure that he gets this hire correct as well. But it's still a massive loss. Chip Kelly is one of those guys that Ohio State fans will remember November 30th, 2024, and that will be one of those games that you think about for the rest of your life because Ohio State was more talented. Ohio State had the better quarterback. Ohio State had so many things better than the team up north, but unfortunately, with Chip Kelly leading the offense, the Buckeyes only scored 10 points. It's not good enough. However, you also remember the run that they had during the playoff run where Ohio State against Tennessee looked like nobody could stop them. Against Oregon, nobody could stop them. Against Texas at Notre Dame, once Ohio State got out of their own way, it really showed and looked like nobody could stop Ohio State. That's with Chip Kelly leading the offense. And so it's a weird thing that you only get 1 year under with Chip Kelly leading the offense when you can't forget November 30th, but you also will never forget January 20th. It's just a weird little dynamic that we have right now in our heads. But I was under the impression and believing that even with Chip Kelly flirting with the NFL like he was, he would be at Ohio State. Until I realized how long this thing was going on and being drawn out, when you only hear about a couple teams, and Chip Kelly has still been linked to those teams to possibly going back to the NFL, it's a reality that that Chip Kelly might go to the NFL after this 1 year. Where we knew before Chip Kelly came to Ohio State when he left the head coaching position at UCLA, that Chip Kelly wanted to get back to just coaching ball. Being a head coach in college football is very, very difficult. Even if you take away the NIL and the portal stuff, just simply being the head football coach of any university, man, it's difficult. It's hard. There are a lot of high demands. There's a lot of pressure on you. And once Chip Kelly got back to Ohio State, or got to Ohio State, and got back to just doing what he loves, he fell in love with it. I believe that him and Will Howard together that was a connection that really was perfect for the season. Now, Ohio State for next year, you want to make sure whoever you get is a recruiter. You want to make sure whoever you get can develop. You probably want to make sure whoever you get can coach at least one position at a high level. Day to day. Now, you're running the offense day to day, but it could be an OC and a quarterback coach or an OC and an O-line coach. Fill in the blank. You want to make sure that person, whoever it is, can coach the offensive coach the offense as well as coach a position group. But I think Ryan Day also wants someone that has a track record of success. And we'll discuss some guys in the very next segment that I believe have a track record of success that would possibly fill this role and do it at a high rate, be very, very successful leading the Buckeyes offense. But those are some things you want. Chip Kelly was recently out on the recruiting trail. Now, while he's being courted, you may want to say, by NFL teams, he's also out recruiting. So I can't really knock Chip Kelly for being linked to some NFL teams and just saying, no, I'm not going to do my job at Ohio State while being under contract with the Buckeyes. No, he was honoring his contract and still working for 2025. And I got to tip my cap to him and say thank you. Like, you're doing what you're supposed to do. No matter what's happening behind the scenes, you are out there on the recruiting trail and making sure you are doing everything you can to prepare for the upcoming season. At the same time, Ryan Day can lead the offense of 2025 if he truly wanted to go back to being the head coach and the offensive coordinator. I don't think he wants to, nor do I think that would be the wise move for Ohio State moving forward. I believe there's one man that should be at the top of Ryan Day's list that should be the first phone call Ryan Day makes to be the next OC and O-line coach at Ohio State. His name is Kevin Wilson. Yes, it would be a rehire, and I don't think in this situation there would be anything wrong with that. Call Kevin Wilson, allow him to be the OC once again for the Buckeyes, and allow him to be the offensive line coach for Ohio State too. Because bringing Kevin Wilson back to Columbus, Ohio will improve Ohio State's run game, where in 2023 and 2024, the run game to me could have been better. A lot better than it was. Quinshawn Judkins and Travion Henderson, two really good backs. I think they both could have had better seasons in 2024. A year ago in 2023, Travion Henderson and Mayan Williams. Unfortunately, Mayan Williams got hurt, was out for the half the season. But I think even when both of them were healthy, I think the run game could have been better in 2023. And I think bringing Kevin Wilson back will not only fill a void for Ohio State's offense, it'll also fill a void for Ohio State's O-line, and it will help the running game from Jump Street. Trust me. That will also be a hire that I think will make Michigan fans nervous. Maybe more nervous than they were when Chip Kelly came to town. Because Kevin Wilson, we've seen what he does against the team up north. We see what the offense looks like. We also see what the running backs do in that game. Bring him back. There's nothing wrong with that. Bring that man back. But also, let's just say that was not the path that Ryan Day wanted to go to. You could also go with Scott Satterfield. You can go with Mike Locksley. Mike Locksley, don't think about the head coach Mike Locksley. When he was at Alabama, you could see how he ran Nick Saban's offense and how efficient it was. And there was a big reason why Nick Saban had a great run between 2015 to 2018 when he was down there running the thing down there in Tuscaloosa. Those are just a couple names. One name that I'm kind of skeptical on is Brian Hartline, because I don't think this is the time to bring a guy in or to hire a guy as a full-time offensive coordinator again that has never called plays. Ryan Day is better when he's not calling plays, when he's not having to be the leader of the football program as well as being the leader of the offense. I think Ryan Day wants to bring someone in and should bring someone in that has experience calling plays and is very successful while calling plays. I love Brian Hartline as a receivers coach. I love what he has done with the offense. His 1 year as an offensive coordinator in Columbus, I don't think everyone can say that was on Kyle McCord. I won't say that at all. I can't say that. While Ryan Day was calling plays, you can look it up. Brian Hartline has the OC tag. May it be in name only. Some people will say that, some people won't, but the title is there. I like Brian Hartline. And no matter who you bring in, I think you keep that co-OC tag with Brian Hartline along with someone coming in to fill the role of OC and offensive line coach. Or hopefully they bring an O-line coach with them, because if they can't fill both roles, that's another search for Ryan Day. And I think Ryan Day would love to have one hire, fill a couple positions, and move on with the day. Who do you think? I know I mentioned Scott Satterfield or Mike Loxley, Brian Hartline, and Kevin Wilson. Kevin Wilson is the first name on my mind and probably will be until someone says Kevin Wilson's not going to be the guy to lead Ohio State's offense in 2025. Who do you think should be the Buckeyes offensive coordinator in 2025? I like Brian Hartline. Don't get me wrong. I think he would be better, at least right now, being the co-OC. Unless him and Ryan Day have such a great relationship that Ryan Day would say, hey, you're calling plays now in some of these games, but I'm going to do it in other games. My fear with that is we see what Ryan Day is when he doesn't have that on his plate. When that gets put back on his plate, there might be too much.